Hello and welcome to the Wired BioHealth Podcast. My name is Jacqueline Hall and I am joined by our show's host, Dr. Evelyn Higgins.
Hey, Jackie.
Great to be with you again, Doc.
Yes, another week.
Another week. So I'm curious, do you think a lot of people, when they say, I got to stop drinking, do you think that AA is the first thing that comes to mind?
I think a lot of people probably say, hey, if you could have done it yourself, you would have already done it. You're going to need some kind of help. You're going to need some kind of support. Yeah. You need a game plan going into it to be successful at, like anything in life, to be successful at it, we have to have a game plan.
Yeah, absolutely. So they know there's a resource out there, but they probably don't know the story of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Right, which is a really great story.
A really great story. And I'm so excited because we have the director of Bill W. and Dr. Bob on with us today. It's Bill Shea, and I'll tell you a little bit about the background of the play itself before we bring on Bill to get into the weeds and his story and how he came to the group. So Bill W. and Dr. Bob, this critically acclaimed play performed off-Broadway in 2007, telling the amazing story of two men who pioneered Alcoholics Anonymous and of their wives who founded Anon. So without further ado, Bill Shea.
Hello.
Bill, thank you for taking the time, and thank you for the work that you do with Second Chance Players.
Well, thanks. It's certainly a labor of love. A little background on Second Chance Players. I've been doing musical theater and theater my entire life. I was an altar boy in The Sound of Music in Oakdale, New York, when I was 9 years old. Ever since then, I've had a love for theater and a love for performing, which I gave up for a while when I moved down here from Texas, from New York, and I was in recovery about 10 years, and I just didn't have the energy, and I didn't want to, it was meeting new people, and theater people are a unique breed, and I stopped doing theater for about 10 years, and
wow.
Then I was asked to do. We have a thing in Alcoholics Anonymous called roundups. Mm-hmm. They're not just in Texas, but all over the country. They're basically conventions that have workshops and speakers and everything you might imagine with that. But with our particular roundup, we had a musical show that was a centerpiece of the entertainment. Mm-hmm. And after a couple of years where they were just awful,
you stepped in.
A friend of mine, hopefully none of them are listening, a friend of mine said, we need to do something about this. And I said, well, why don't you, if you write it, I can stage it. And that began about a 10-year journey of that. Not just after that, I started writing them myself. The first one we did was just a knockoff of The Sound of Music because everybody knows.
Right, sure.
But as we went forward, we got into like some real kind of topical things that we all face both in life and in recovery. And I would use popular music and rewrite the words to reflect what the storyline was. Nice. And they got to be pretty popular. And we actually took a couple of them on the road to other cities in San Antonio and Austin because they had their own roundups. And it was a lot of fun. And I found that instead of performing, I really enjoyed directing and writing and creating a bigger picture. And I thought that that's where my service was at. So about 4 years ago, we're sitting around my dining room table, my co-director and my stage manager, and we had a musical director who was, who had been doing this for 30 years. And I'm thinking, man, we have everything that we need to start a community theater. The people that, the jobs that are tough to fill, I have sitting here at my dining room table. Wow. And that was really where Second Chance was born, in that idea. And we said, we can provide a space for people who like to do theater, maybe have a little fear of being triggered because, theater is also a place where you can if you want to party, you're going to
Right.
find it,
Right.
you know, and, uh, and, and that's exactly what we did. And, Bill W. and Dr. Bob was a show that I had seen done here in Dallas probably about 15 years ago. And it just stuck in my brain as like, I'd like to do that one day and put my take on it. And that's what we're doing. And that's how we're here today. We threw our hat over the wall and then had to go get it. So.
I love it. I love it.
Wow, that's so exciting. So I'm curious, how do you see theater in the recovery community being different than people not in recovery? What does that look like?
Well, number one, people are generally more reliable.
Good point.
Good point.
which may or may not be the case. I'll let you know after a couple more shows. But there is this common thread. One thing that we know, and one thing that I knew from doing these roundup shows, was that we affect people.
Mm-hmm.
And Alcoholics Anonymous is about service to others.
Mm-hmm.
The story of Bill and Bob, you have to understand, like, when we talk about recovery nowadays, people think, oh, well, everybody's in recovery. We hear about it all the time. You hear about people in the movies, and they're, sober, or they're going to, all the actors and sports figures. And there's not this taboo and social condemnation of alcoholics that there wasn't when this play took place. It was in the 1930s, and Bill Wilson was a Wall Street maven, made a lot of money. Bob was a doctor in Akron, Ohio, and the fact that they even got together is just miraculous.
Right.
Bill had they both had this contact with this group called the Oxford Group, which was a more religious organization that laid out the steps, which later became the 12 steps. And what had not worked was that this idea of it was connected to religion. You had to be very religious to be part of this group, and you had to testify, and all the things that you can associate, and that turned a lot of people off, especially alcoholics who don't like to be told what to do. And what Bill and Bob figured out, really kind of, AA was kind of reverse engineered by them talking to each other. Mm-hmm. They took the best of what they had heard, which is nothing is original. Okay. Mm-hmm. I have found there's a philosopher called Epictetus that, if you read him, he came before Plato, he came before Aristotle, and if you read his writings, it's like reading a page out of a recovery handbook in the 28-day recovery thing. It's all about making amends when you need to make amends. I mean, when you think about it, AA is about, and recovery is about growing up. Yeah. It's about taking responsibility.
Yeah.
It's about taking, you hurt somebody. If you hurt somebody, you make amends. Mm-hmm. If you're wrong, you own it. Yeah. Yeah. You get up and you go to work every day. Mm-hmm. People are amazed at how their lives get better. Well, you know what? You're going to work like everyone else.
Right. Right.
So, and you're not going out afterwards and spending all your money on booze and coke and whatever. So you have more money in your pocket. And all of a sudden, these things start happening where your life comes back. And Bill and Bob figured that out. And they figured out what they needed to do was that two alcoholics talking to each other could be the cure for alcoholism, which up to that point was you were either tucked away in your in the attic, you went into an institution, jails, and death. That's what was waiting for the alcoholic in before AA. So this tells that story.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And you think about what a resource it is, that it's free, that it doesn't have to have any other institutions that really start to tarnish the reputation or the teachings of AA. And we talk about all the time, you don't have to be an alcoholic or somebody with a substance use disorder to benefit from the practice. Exactly as you just said, it's about making amends when you injure somebody. It's about growing up, doing the things you're supposed to do, and realizing you're not it. There's a higher power out there, and that's why we're on this earth. You don't have to be a person who needs help with a substance or an activity to benefit from that.
Right. You think about the timeline of someone getting sober, and then they look at their snapshot of their life 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years, 10 years, 20 years. Wow, my life is so much better. Well, just the things that you said, Bill, it's like you stepped up. You owned your life. You know, and as a result of that, isn't your work ethic going to be better? Aren't your relationships going to be better? And if your relationships are better, isn't your life going to be better as a result of that?
Yeah, I love it. I think there was an episode of the Wired BioHealth Podcast where I really dove into step 4 of the 12 steps and talked about the turnarounds and creating this fear list and doing this moral inventory, because anybody's going to benefit from having that hard talk with yourself and saying, out of all of this problem and confusion in my life, where do I fit into it? And inevitably, you're a part somewhere. Maybe you're a big part, a small part, but you play a role in it.
The conductor? Am I a player? You know, what part am I, right?
Yeah.
So
tell me about your life before.
That's where I was going to go.
Yeah.
Now to the hard questions, Bill.
Well, Evelyn, would you like to weigh in here? Full disclosure, Evelyn and I have known each other since we were 3 years
children. Old. Yeah, we were kids. So when Bill said he was in The Sound of Music, so was I. I was Frau
Yes,
Schmidt.
you were. Yes, you were.
I was the maid.
So, I mean, I was, I'm the sixth child of 6 in an Irish Catholic family. Loud and angry won the day in my house. There was a lot of drinking going on. I don't prescribe to call anybody else an alcoholic. I know that I'm an alcoholic, and but there was a lot of drinking going on, and I found, since I was the gift child, my brothers were all 8, 9, 10 years older than me. So I was running as fast as I could to keep up with them when I was a kid. So I did everything a little young and probably a little earlier than I should have, which included starting to drink when I was 12, 13 years old. And I could drink. I could drink a lot of people I could drink a lot of adults under the table. And as I got older, I loved bars. I loved everything about drinking. I loved the sociability of it. I loved the hail fellow, well met kind of drinking. I was a bar drinker, or gang drinker. You weren't going to find me, alone in the corner with a bottle of booze, hiding my drinking, Right. I mean, what was the point? It was, to have a good time. But there is a point when there's a line that you cross, and, some people, straddle that line their whole lives. But once you cross that line, there's no going back. There's a saying, once a pickle, never a cucumber. I got sober at 27. I could have gotten sober when I was 21, and I still would have had a story to tell. I still would have had the consequences of an alcoholic, and I could have benefited from the program. I had never, when I got sober to get out of trouble. I did not get sober to get sober. I was for the umpteenth time, I was late for work. I reeked of booze. I had a boss that wasn't related to me. And he said, we don't need you, Bill. Yeah. And, I hadn't heard that a lot. That might have been that might have been whispered. That might have been something that people said, but I had never heard that directly to my face. We don't need you. And I knew, because I was in a union, that I could go to treatment, and I had a cousin that had gone to treatment. So I just mirrored that. I actually called the place myself and got myself checked in. And as I said, and Dwight Gooden and Darryl Strawberry had gone there, and I was a big Met fan, so I said, "This should be fun. Maybe I'll meet a baseball player. Maybe I'll meet the Mets." So I went to Smithers Institute in New York, and there was a time along the way that I just said, these folks seem to have a better idea than I do. Maybe I'll just let this thing drag me along and see where it takes me. So rather than, hey, I jumped right in and I sort of, I was visited by an angel, and, sort of burning bush, it was basically like, how about I don't fight?
Right.
And see what happens. And it has since been my experience that's more the experience of most alcoholics than not. That even if we say, because we learn a language that we probably previously haven't known, so we get to say things that sound lofty and intelligent, and we love the sound of our own voices, as I'm proving today. But
but you have a good one, Bill.
Well, thank you. I just, and it says in the book Alcoholics Anonymous that the door of willingness needs to be open just a crack, and then you start building sober experience, and that's what happened to me. I started saying yes. They wanted me to go to Halfway House. I said yes. I went to a Halfway House in Minnesota in December. That was fun.
Yeah, no kidding.
I didn't see concrete until the end of May. I came back to New York after I think about 6 months. I stayed out there, and I just started my life over again. I came out. I'm a gay man. That was
that a big part of it?
I think to some people. Pardon?
Was that a big part for you?
I think it was. I don't think it's what made me an alcoholic. I think I would have drank anyway. I mean, I was a drinker, but I think that, I found companionship in gay bars, and I was like, oh, I can do this. I know how to do this, I know how to, and I, ended up working the door at one of the gay bars I used to go to, and it was just I had this covert life that kind of mirrored my other life. It was just different. There were a lot more guys around. Well, maybe not. As my straight friends really weren't good with women either. So, but they were better at drinking around a keg, I gotta say. So that was the biggest thing, was my family. It was I had come out to my mother and my sister, and that's another well-worn story of we come out to the women first. They're usually more open to it, and then my brothers, and I remember my oldest brother, who was the last person I told, who I had the most anxiety about, said, well, if you don't like the way things are around here, just wait a second and they'll change. And that was his reaction to it. So fast forward, I've lived 3 or 4 different lives. I've, lost everything, gained everything. It's I have a saying: if you haven't lost everything twice in sobriety, you don't even remember me. Yeah. I found the love of my life. We got married in We were together 13 years, and then we decided to get married because they passed marriage equality in New York. We came back to New York and had a big family wedding out on Long Island, and that was he's going to kill me. 10 years ago, 11 years ago. We're raising my nephew, so we have a little family here. He's graduating high school this year, and I go to meetings. It's and I do service. This is part of the service that I do. I feel like I know that whatever's twisting me up, if I can find the service in it, I can find the answer to my own anxiety. Find the service, you'll find your answer, and that has held true for me from day one.
Yep.
So, yeah.
That would benefit anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your story, I'm curious, do you feel like if you had waited to get sober later in life that your bottom would have been lower, or you think you would have just kind of trended the same way and continued?
I was done. I was I didn't know how to. I mean, my greatest fear as a kid was that I wouldn't be able. I didn't know how to do life. I didn't know how to. I wouldn't know how to support myself. My dad was a very let's say influential, sure, certainly, but he was a big presence in anybody's life. He was just he kind of demanded that it wasn't even demand. Our path was that we would go to school, we would go to college, we would be successful, and I just didn't know how I was going to do that because I didn't have that focus. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to party, and I learned how to lie, and I learned how to get over, and I learned how to make excuses, and that was my life. And then he died when I was 15, and then I had an excuse. I was the kid whose dad died, so I had and everybody felt sorry for me. So I use that because that's what we do. That's what alcoholics do. We use circumstances around us to get what we want. Alcoholics know how to get what they want. But at the end of the day, if that's your only focus, for me at least, I wasn't focusing on making. I was 27. I was living in my mother's house. It was like.
Right.
Yeah.
And as you say, Bill, it's like you didn't embrace when you went to treatment, but you were open to it. Yeah, but you were open.
Well,
so that was it.
Well, that's the thing, and I don't know if I was open when I went in. It's
right.
That's the beauty of a program like Alcoholics Anonymous is because you hear things from other people, and you're like, wow, they're telling my story.
Right.
I had never thought of that. Now I'm hearing people say out loud what I guarded and wouldn't let you know about. Right? I wouldn't. If I let you know who I really am, then you wouldn't like me, or you could get a clean shot. So I'm going to not going to let that happen. One other thing is that alcoholism is a self-diagnosed disease. If you don't diagnose yourself with it, you don't have it.
It's true.
Because cure won't work.
Yeah.
So I think that's another major point. And I heard somebody said non-alcoholics get drunk like twice a year, and I remember sitting next to somebody. I said, "What did he just say?
That's got to be wrong.
Twice a what? Twice a week?" Because if I could have gotten drunk twice a week, I would have been fine. And then I thought about my mother. My mother was not an alcoholic. She, had a whiskey sour every now and then, and if she drank too much wine before dinner on Thanksgiving,
Right.
You know, she'd get a rip-roaring toast, you know.
Right. Turkey's
And
a
that
little
was
well
it,
done.
you know. She was in bed by 9, you know.
Yeah.
And that was it. So that was my oh, okay, so that's not an alcoholic, and this is me.
Right.
You know. So we, you know, it's the first drink that gets you drunk. If I didn't have a first drink, I didn't get drunk. Didn't
Right.
bother me. I didn't get drunk.
Right.
And the other thing I did, which was, you know, I mean, you asked what would have happened. I probably would have wrapped my car around a telephone pole because I drove drunk all the time.
Yeah.
I was a terror. I didn't think so at the time. I didn't think about it, but you know, that's what, that's the reality of it. And, you know, I drove drunk with people in the car, you know, and, you know, I came home one night from, driving down Montauk Highway on Long Island and going 90 miles an hour and couldn't make the turn into, my summer house and luckily there was a fence in front of a brick wall because I hit the fence and it saved my life because if I had hit the brick wall, I'd be dead.
Right.
You know, so those are the things that, you know, when you start doing a 4-step, when you start looking at your consequences in the first step, you suddenly realize, oh, wow, yeah, that was, you know, they say God watches over babies and drunks. And, you know,
it brings
something was watching over.
Yeah, it brings us to the name of your group, Second Chance. How many second chances when you start to reflect on your life?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not just, I mean, anybody who has, you know, I have a friend of mine. We joke that, you know, America is, you know, an alcoholic country. I mean, it's all, you know, whether it's because the disease of alcoholism is not just about people. I'll take this to the wives of Bill and Bob, Lois and Ann, who founded Al-Anon. People in Al-Anon suffer from the disease of alcoholism.
Right.
They're not drinkers,
Right.
but they have behaviors that they've developed over the years of dealing with alcoholics, walking on eggshells and, you know, covering up and being super over responsible and, you know, being a victim, you know, these are all, I think Al-Anon is actually the graduate school of Alcoholics Anonymous because
that's a great point.
you don't have the consequences that, you know, and you don't have any of the fun.
Yeah. And you have to be able to own alcoholism as a family disease. You have to take that in and say, hey, I'm not the one who's having a drink, but it's true.
Exactly. When you contribute to, you know, I had a friend of mine at work whose mother actually worked in the same warehouse as I did. And this was after I got sober, and she would call me about him, like, because she knew me, she knew I was, you know, and what can I do? What can I do? And I would say, Adele, you need to go to Al-Anon.
Yeah.
Go to an Al-Anon meeting.
Yeah.
You know, read some literature. And that's not what she wanted to hear.
Right.
She wanted to hear, you know,
fix it.
what can I do to fix it?
Fix it. Yep.
You know, and it's not him that needed to be fixed.
Right.
You know, it's you know, the ability to have boundaries and to say enough is enough. You know,
Boundaries is a big thing for people to learn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge.
I love you, and you know, you need to go.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm seeing a sequel. It's going to be Bill S. and Dr. Evelyn. So maybe Second Chance Players wants to consider it. This has been such an enjoyable conversation. I want to fly out to Plano and watch the show. I mean, I'm ready.
Probably going.
February 16th, 17th, and 18th.
Yeah.
What?
16, 17, 18, and then the following weekend as well?
And then the following weekend as well. Last two weekends in February.
Okay.
Second Chance Players
Still
We'll
tickets
take your
available?
information on there. Absolutely.
Okay.
They're 20 bucks plus Eventbrite's fees. I think they're 25 bucks a piece.
Beautiful.
Which is you'll be entertained, you'll laugh, you'll cry,
Yeah.
you may decide that, wow, I may need to do a little something about my life here.
Exactly. Everybody will find a little piece of themselves in this place.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Because we all have somebody. We all have somebody in our lives
Absolutely.
that, whether it's you, it's your spouse, whether it's your brother,
Yep.
sister,
Yep.
uncle, we know what this is about. So.
And directed by William P. Shea. How can it go wrong?
That's me. That is me.
It's been a
so
pleasure,
yes,
Bill.
second chance players down. I'll throw this out there for anybody's
Sure.
thinking of, that may not be able to come but wants to help out. Buy 5 tickets and I'll put them into a scholarship fund.
Beautiful.
And give them out to folks who are in treatment facilities or
Beautiful.
or just need are in need, and that we've already done that a little bit, so we're building up a little scholarship fund for tickets to this. So you got $100 to burn, we'll put a scholarship together, we'll put 5 tickets in the hopper for,
I love it.
we've got half a dozen treatment facilities in the Metro Dallas area that we go and visit and take meetings to. So
Beautiful.
that'd be something we could do.
Absolutely. So if you're not in the Plano, Dallas area and you want to make the trip, I think it'd be worthwhile. If not, send $100, get some scholarships together, because everybody knows somebody that this could benefit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Bill,
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing.
What a
your
pleasure.
Story. Yeah,
What
thank
a
you
pleasure.
for sharing your story, and thank you for the work that you do. Like you said, it's all about giving back, and you're giving your gift, your talent back. It started with the sound of music.
There you go. As is that's so appropriate, because everything starts with a musical.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if there's not one, start making it up, right?
Yep.
That's right.
Great, Bill. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, wonderful.
All right, kids.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
You bet. Take care.
So, Dr. Higgins, I love that Bill gave an opportunity for people who maybe aren't in the Texas area. Head over to secondchanceplayers.org. Go ahead and purchase those tickets.
Absolutely.
Like you said, 5. That's a wonderful opportunity for somebody to get to experience the fun stuff. If they're in treatment, it's not all doom, gloom. What can't I do? This is an opportunity to see what they can do.
Right. And if those gifts are there and they're hiding because you've been drowning them,
Right.
Go have fun, make it happen.
Yeah, I love it. And then if you feel like this conversation really started to get some wheels turning, head over to the website. You can either go to wiredforaddiction.com, and as the name says, that's going to be for people that suspect a substance use disorder or a process addiction. Also, wiredbiohealth.com. Maybe if you want to just more look into some of the behaviors, we're not ready to look at the substance or the activity, but let's just learn about the biology that's making it more difficult to make the changes you want to. So I encourage you, visit the websites, call the office. The number is 1-888-841-7099, and we're here to help.
Great episode. Thanks, Jackie, and I'll see you next week.
Okay, bye, Doc.
Bye-bye.